Will the new card that Konami just released change the game forever? Can Maxx ever come back? And why did Marvel do my man Gambit like that? Find out the answers to all those questions and more in this video. What's up, guys? It's me, Spidey, and today we're going to talk about the new card that Konami just released, Mulcharmy Purulia. It is a level 4 aqua monster with 100 attack points and 600 defense points with an effect that reads as follows. If you control no cards on the field, you can discard this card from your hand to apply these effects for the rest of the turn. Each time your opponent normal summons or special summons a monster from their hand, you immediately draw one card. And during the end phase, if you have more cards in your hand than the number of cards in your opponent controls plus 6, you will shuffle random cards from your hand into the deck equal to the difference. You can only activate the effects of other Mulcharmy monsters once per turn that you activated this card's effect. One thing that I think is important to note is that the exact translation of this card's effect doesn't exactly translate into English, so they might change when the card gets released because of like the way that it reads between the difference and plus 6, and the way how it translates over doesn't have a direct translation, so the effect of the card might change. But the way that the card reads today, there's been a lot of discourse and a lot of discussion about, is this card going to replace Maxx? I think with decks like Snake Eyes, I think with a lot of decks out here like Rescue Ace, there are a lot of decks that are in the top tier metagame that this card might be useful against. But if you're asking for my opinion personally, I don't think that this card is going to be that much of a nuisance or that much of a worry because of the restrictions of it being that you need to have no cards on the field and you get to shuffle cards back from your hand back into the deck. So when I say that, I mean that I don't think that this card's going to be that good. Now, if you was to ask me when I first read this card, I would have told you, oh my god, they're replacing Maxx. Maxx's never coming back. This card is the new Maxx. After a few days of watching the discourse and seeing how the card really works and the fact that its translation isn't really, may not be all the way interpreted correctly, I think that this card is only useful if you have it in your hand first or second turn. I can't personally see this card being useful if you draw it late game, because you're most likely going to have cards on the field, meaning this card is useless. Now, will there be more Mulcharmy cards coming later? It's yet to be seen. The way that the Infinite Forbidden pack list looks, from what I'm seeing, it doesn't look like the way how they list cards. It doesn't look like there's anything around it that makes it seem like it's going to be an archetype that's fully coming out right now. Maybe later on they might release more cards to it that may work in similar fashion, like Ghost Tricks, or they might have its own archetype and this is just an adjacent within that archetype. Now, with this card being released, does that mean that Maxx never gets to come back into the game?
If you can't do the time, don't do the crime.
I don't think so. I think Maxx still has a chance coming back.
Okay, time's up. Now get out.
Like, I know this card's effect reads very similar to Maxx, but I think that there's still enough negates. They're still called by the grave. You still have your Drolling Lockbird. You still have your Ash Blossoms. You still have your Cross-Nade Designators. Like, you still have so many other hand traps that can also negate this card, along with the fact that this card isn't an exact copy of a 1-for-1 for Maxx. Maxx also being allowed in the OCG and in Master Duel. I still think that there is a fair chance that one day Maxx can still come back. I've been going back and forth on this all week because I think it's really interesting the fact that Maxx gets to exist in a game like Master Duel at 3 and we get to play it. And Maxx is one of those cards where it feels like, oh my god, you love to have it, you hate when it's used against you, but then also at the same time you hate when you do have it and you use it and then it gets negated and then you get nothing and your opponent gets to get all of his field. I don't want to say Maxx can never come back, but I think it's a very interesting times that we're in. For me being a day one Yu-Gi-Oh player, where we get a game that allows a card that the TCG doesn't allow. I see how the card can exist in one format, so in my mind I feel like, oh, it wouldn't be that much of an outrage if we got to see it in today's version of the TCG. It's just that my thing is with a card like Maxx, it either needs to be at 3 where everybody gets a fair chance at getting to it. It's even at 1, it's just more luck. And I don't think that that's really fair in today's day and age where you have so many different archetypes that search through the deck. So I think that my personal opinion is Maxx needs to either stay in Master Duel, never in TCG, or you carry it over the way it is in Master Duel, you carry that over into TCG. I just think that sometimes it can still be unhealthy because of the way how it is abused in Master Duel, because there are those games where you're playing, and if you play Maxx and you don't have no type of response to it, it's just an automatic surrender. You get to play Maxx on your opponent, and your opponent doesn't have anything to disrupt it, then your opponent just ends the turn. So it can somewhat be a floodgate if used in certain situations. I just think that it's a really interesting card, and now with these new cards like Mulcharmy Purulia coming out now, I just think that that card is not good enough. I always say this in our Banless Banter segment. I feel like Konami knows what they're doing because they know. Examples like Mulcharmy Purulia show you that Konami does know how to make fair and balanced cards. When they make cards like this, it's like, oh my god, this is cool. This is what Maxx should have been. Or if Maxx got an errata, this should have been the errata. But now that it's not the errata, it makes me think Konami's never gonna errata Maxx. And now, all of a sudden, with this card being fair, I think that most people might use it in a side deck situation. I don't see this card being in a main deck. I personally think that this card's going to get a lot of hype into it. People are going to throw it into their side decks when they face those top decks, when they face their Rescue Aces, when they face their Snake Eyes, and it might see some play in some tournament. But I think outside of that top meta game, in those specific situations, in the first turn games, it's not going to get much play. It's going to be a dead draw, and it'll stay in the side deck, and then it'll just get power crap out of the game. People will forget about it because it's just too fair. It's not fast enough for today's game. Like, Konami knows how to make fair cards, and then that also means they know how to make broken cards. And when they make the broken cards, those cards stand out. Those cards and those archetypes reach the top of the meta, and these cards that are balanced like Mulcharmy Purulia, they might, like, the hype of it might make it seem like it's meta, but then in practical use, I think it will fade out and we won't see from it ever again. Infinite Forbidden isn't coming out in the TCG until July of this year. So we have a couple of months to see what the OCG does with it, because OCG is coming out later on this month. So we get a couple of months to see what it's doing there. When they get to have both Maxx and Mulcharmy Purulia, we get to watch how it plays there. And I think the fact that they have Maxx is just gonna make it be like, why would I want a whacker version of something I already have? So it'll see no play there, and then we'll be the test dummies to use it, and it might see some play in the initial phases of the tournaments coming out after it gets released. But I think that outside of those very specific first turn situations, the card is a dead draw, the card is practically useless, and it will just fade out of existence because it is not good enough to compete with today's meta. Those are my thoughts. What do you think about Mulcharmy Purulia? Is it better than Maxx? Is it the new replacement for Maxx? Does this card existence mean that Maxx is never coming back? And will Marvel stop playing with my favorite motherfucking X-Men and don't bitch my man Gambit like that? Don't ever do no shit like that ever again. Comment down below your thoughts on Mulcharmy Purulia and what do you think it's going to do to the game. And if you have anything to go against what I'm saying, go in those comments. I'm there. I'm in those comment sections arguing with you guys all day. But until then, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and click that bell for notifications. That way you're always updated when we upload a future video to this channel. We didn't record anything for Saturday, but I think there's something getting uploaded. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.